Hello and welcome to the show. Tonight, the life of an idol. We check in with Lloydminster resident Earl Stevenson 2 years after his Canadian Idol debut. And the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase comes into the studio to talk about his journey from pro wrestler to Christian evangelist. But first, federal MP Leon Benoit is headed back to the House. Find out if he's fighting for your interests. All that tonight on Around the Region. Remember this?
Why don't y'all fade away?
2 years ago, this 23-year-old was on everyone's mind. Tonight, we take you into his world, post-Idol mania. But first, let's talk politics. Welcome to the show. Here with me now is MP Leon Benoit, who is the MP for Vegreville-Wainwright. Thanks so much for coming in.
I'm delighted to be here.
So you're going back to session in just a couple days here. You're headed back on the 20th. How was your summer? Are you feeling ready to go back to work?
I am. You know, it's not usually I am. I'm not, so that's great. I am. It's been a great summer of attending agriculture fairs. I've attended 100th anniversaries of 3 or 4 communities this summer, and then 100th anniversaries of churches, which are extremely important.
And I'm sure you've been meeting a lot of people in the constituency here too. What are some of the issues you're going to be bringing back?
Well, there really are 3 issues that have come to the forefront. The first being getting rid of the gun registry. That keeps coming up, and I'm really hopeful that it actually will happen this time. The second, of course, are the boatload of migrants who smugglers left on the shores in Western Canada. And the third is actually the issue of the Kidscotty Corner, and that's come up for 4 years, and you know, I know and Minister Snellgrove know that it just has to be dealt with. Of course, the province decides, but I hear from people, and I know that Minister Snellgrove is doing everything he can to try to make something happen there as soon as possible. And you know, I don't know, the one thing as a temporary measure that's been suggested is lowering the speed limit, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So does Minister Snellgrove. He's taken that to the public servants involved and said, you know, let's do this as a starting point, and then we'll solve the problem on the long term.
Well, I'm sure people are relieved to even, you know, hear that it's been brought to your attention for sure.
Oh,
I mean, we have people with petitions and everything, right? I mean, they want sort of an overpass similar to the one that's just out here in Vermilion. What do you think of that idea?
Well, you know, it's not for me to say. It really is the province that deals with that. Minister Snellgrove has said that that is one possibility for sure, because this has to be dealt with. Too many lives lost. It is a dangerous corner. You wouldn't think it just looking at it. I've come from the north, particularly heading south, crossing Highway 16 or getting on to the eastbound lane on Highway 16. Many times I've seen situations that are just difficult to deal with. Now, if the drivers are patient, you'll be okay.
Right.
But if you won't wait for the trucks to clear, and you know, and that's
well, and there's that blind corner there too, right? That is a little bit tough to deal with, and I mean,
particularly when there are vehicles turning. Heading north.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Right. So it just has to be dealt with.
It does have to be dealt with for sure, and I'm sure people in Kidscotty would totally agree.
And it will
there's been a lot of backlash to say that the government's been slow to deal with this. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, it is. It's important people understand the process. Politicians can't make these decisions on their own. If that is what happened, legitimately there would be criticism against politicians. So the public servants, who are the experts on these things, have criteria that they use to judge when something should happen. Now, in this case, both Minister Snellgrove and myself have pointed out some things to the public servants saying, you're not considering all of the facts here. And I think that may lead to something being done quicker, and I'm very hopeful of that. And I know that Lloyd Snellgrove is working on that really on an urgent basis.
Well, let's switch gears here a little bit and start talking about the gun registry. This is something that's going to be voted on in the first couple weeks here of the session. Why don't you just talk a little bit about that issue?
Well, it's an issue that's been around ever since they put it in place. I opposed it. My party opposed it, and we've been trying to get rid of it ever since. We now have a vote, third reading of Candace Hepner's private member's bill. Should that pass, that'll send this to the Senate, and hopefully will end the registry. Jack Layton has said today that he's freed up his MPs, or said recently anyway, that he will free up his MPs to vote the way they feel they should.
For sure. We're just going to take a quick break here. We're just in the middle of a conversation with MP Leon Benoit for Vegreville-Wainwright. Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us now, we're just in the middle of a conversation with MP for Vegreville-Wainwright, Leon Benoit. We're just talking about the gun registry. So your party has opposed it. You're hoping that it gets voted down. Yes.
That's right.
Why is it important that this happens? Why is it important that the Conservative mandate it?
Well, there are two main reasons. One is the cost, and it's already been a waste, and I would argue it's a complete waste of $2 billion. This is taxpayers' money. Could be much better spent on healthcare, on education, on a variety of issues, quite frankly, on further tax reduction, whatever. Secondly, the registry, and if you talk to the frontline police officers, almost all of them will tell you this. Now, the chiefs of police and other organizations, they're quite different. They're more political groups. But frontline police officers, most of them know that if you're trusting the registry to give you information on who has long guns, then you're acting in a foolish way, because the information simply isn't reliable. There are errors in more than 90% of the entrants on the registry. So this really is a false sense of security.
And maybe we could even link this with the next issue that you've been dealing with. You've recently released a statement on organized crime, and that you're going to be taking sort of a stand against that. Is this something that's happening in our region specifically? Is this why you're dealing with it, or are you just talking more general?
No, it's something that we've been dealing with. We've actually passed a couple of pieces of legislation that make it easier for police officers and Crown prosecutors to deal with organized crime. And so we've gone part way, but there's more to be done. Organized crime is a growing problem in Canada. It's most prevalent in the large cities. Edmonton has a lot of criminal gangs and other organized crime, which are a huge problem. Almost any of the shootings you hear about and many of the stabbings in Edmonton are gang wars or organized crime backed type of events. Let's
talk a little bit about Rethink Alberta. They've sort of launched this campaign against the oil sands and maybe discouraged a lot of tourism into Alberta here in these next couple of months. You're also on the Natural Resources Committee as well, is that correct?
I chair the Natural
Resources Committee. So what's your feeling on this? Do you think this is going to hurt us here in the Midwest?
It does hurt, and it's completely bogus. The oil sands 30 years ago had a lot of things to clean up, but they've done that. This is the bum rap we're getting, and it's really unfair. That I hope can be successfully countered. And the Alberta government's doing a good job. We've worked on that, the Alberta caucus, and I hope that goes away.
Do you think it's being properly countered?
I think it's been pretty effectively countered, but it's late. And
right.
Business themselves have a great responsibility for dealing with this, and they're late. But they're in there now, they're doing a good job now, and that's all we can do.
I mean, they're calling it the next oil disaster. Is it anywhere close to an oil disaster?
That's just so ridiculous that it's almost beyond belief. It's interesting, that coming from Americans, when they have the same kind of oil being produced in California, and they actually use more energy to do it than we do, and that from a country that relies on coal for most of their energy production, and these huge open pit mines that are never reclaimed. Now that's just not right. So if you want to focus on environmental issues, do it in a fair manner, and that isn't being done right now.
Well, thanks for coming in, and I hope this isn't the last time we see you this term. Hopefully we'll have you on again.
You invite me, I'll come.
Thank you. This has been our conversation with MP for Vegreville-Wainwright, Leon Benoit. Your top news headlines are after the break.